Type ISD Doll into a search bar, and you'll find a 50-year-old Norwegian cold case that has been pulled into the modern algorithm. In this digital space, faded photographs from 1970 overlap with glowing smartphone screens, each layer of the viral myth blurring the original tragedy. The actual discovery took place on a cold November morning in a remote area of Bergen known as Death Valley. A father and his 2 young daughters came across the charred remains of a woman. Every identifying label had been cut from her clothes, and her fingerprints had been systematically sanded off. Authorities quickly ruled the death a suicide and closed the file. With no name to put on a headstone, she was buried in a zinc coffin, a measure taken so her body could one day be disinterred if her identity was ever discovered. That official silence left a gap that remained for decades. Without a definitive police conclusion to anchor the story, the case became a blank canvas for the internet to fill with its own theories. Interest in the case spiked when the Death in Ice Valley podcast began broadcasting the original evidence to a global audience. The investigation moved out of the local archives and straight into the hands of thousands of armchair detectives. These researchers began parsing the items found in 2 suitcases she had abandoned at a Bergen train station: wigs, non-prescription glasses, and various international currencies. Every tag on her belongings had been removed. Among these belongings was a notepad filled with columns of handwritten characters. While some saw this as simple shorthand for her travel dates, the decoded list of European cities became a central pillar for those convinced she was operating with professional tradecraft. As these physical artifacts were scanned and uploaded, the investigation moved away from the local police department in Bergen. The case became a global project, accessible to anyone with an internet connection. By tracking hotel check-in forms across Europe, investigators found she had utilized at least 8 different fake passports. She moved through these crowded, transient lobbies as Claudia Tielt, Vera Jarley, and Genevieve Lancier, always paying her bills in cash. Digital sleuths used open-source records to track a single plastic bag found in her luggage to a specific shoe store in Stavanger. The owner recalled her buying rubber boots and noted that she smelled strongly of garlic, a rare scent in Norway at the time. Amateur researchers began scanning declassified archives for women who matched her description, eventually surfacing the name Anna Hogarova, a high-profile fraudster who traveled through Europe with a collection of wigs and aliases. Another name surfaced from the community search: Angelina Celeste, a woman suspected of being a double agent who had been caught reviewing sensitive consulate records in Brussels. These discoveries highlight a tension in crowdsourced work. The internet is highly efficient at finding coincidences, but it often struggles to determine if those coincidences constitute forensic proof. While the forums followed these names, laboratory results began providing a different set of facts. DNA extracted from her remains revealed she belonged to a matrilineal line originating in Southeast Europe or Southwest Asia. Analysis of the isotopes in her teeth indicated a childhood spent near the French-German border. The chemical signatures suggest she was born around 1930, growing up in a region caught between 2 powers during the Second World War. Her dental work narrowed the search even further. The specific gold alloys and bridge supports in her mouth were characteristic of East German dentistry methods taught in the late 1950s. Despite these specific geographic markers, many viral videos bypass the lab data to present a more cinematic version of the story. These creators often claim she was a Stasi operative named Margot Hoffman, even though no scientific link to that name exists. The algorithm tends to amplify these sensational spy narratives. A story about an international assassin generates more engagement than a technical report on mitochondrial DNA. The spy theory relies on the fact that her travels overlapped with top-secret tests of the Norwegian Penguin missile. For many, this proximity is enough to confirm she was a Cold War operative. But her behavior at hotels was the opposite of discreet. She complained about her rooms, moved furniture into closets, and was remembered by staff for being visibly on guard and frightened of a knock at the door. Some analysts suggest a different reality. She was a woman suffering from severe, untreated paranoia. The many wigs, the fake identities, and the frantic travel could be the actions of someone desperately trying to stay ahead of pursuers who existed only in her mind. Her final attempt to erase her identity would, in this context, be the final act of a profound psychological crisis. The internet often favors the spy narrative because it turns a tragedy into a thriller. We prefer the mystery of an elite agent over the reality of a woman who was simply and devastatingly alone. In her final days, the ISD Doll Woman took every possible step to be forgotten. She removed the labels from her clothes and the fingerprints from her hands to ensure that Margot, or whoever she was, would never be found. But the digital age has made that erasure impossible. Modern 3D facial reconstructions have reconstructed the features she tried to destroy, and her image is now shared across the globe. There is a wide gap between the viral ISD doll and the actual human being buried in Bergen. One is a digital ghost. The other was a woman whose origins we are only now beginning to understand through the lens of a microscope. We may never find her true name, but the ongoing obsession with her case suggests that even as she tried to disappear, she left behind a mystery that the digital world